research on a community not previously examined in existing studies of history. It existed in Maunabo, Puerto Rico during the early 1900s. So, without further ado, it was the beginning of September 1935. Pedro looked over the port of Maunabo, where his father arrived 6 decades ago on an illegal slave ship named the Majestad. His father, Martin, was kidnapped as a young boy and forcibly boarded the vessel from the upper Congo River, bringing a world so familiar with him to a place he had never seen. While looking upon the port of Maunabo, Pedro might have wondered how he had made it so far, despite being the son of a persona esclavizada, an enslaved man. Pedro Rodriguez Torres had dozens of children. He wondered who he would leave his land to, who would run his grocery businesses, and who would tend to the livestock. He wondered if he was making the right choices and if the legacy he created would live on after he perished. Pedro Rodriguez Torres understood that his father's circumstances were coerced, but he wanted more for himself than to perform grueling labor on the hacienda for another's benefit. After making this realization, Pedro quit his job in a dramatic fashion and vowed to never work for anybody else again. His plan could never have succeeded without the contributions of the women in his life. Upon her death, Pedro's mother, Vicenta, left him an inheritance of land. Upon this cuerda, Pedro built a shack and began to cultivate crops such as hedionda, which was used in Puerto Rican coffee to prevent bloating. He exchanged this fruit for essential goods like salt, cod, and herring, eventually expanding his trade to include rice, which he purchased from town markets and later cultivated on his own land. Over time, Pedro diversified his offerings by raising cattle, goats, and pigs, which were processed and sold alongside other products in his store. His vision of creating a grocery business with a wide variety of goods was uncommon in early 20th century Maunabo, Puerto Rico, and it made his store vital to the community. This vision, however, was only practical with the help of his wife, Escolastica. The sleeves rode high and an expert hand. She rose before the sun to milk cows and goats. Her care for the livestock created dividends for the business and kept it sustainable. For decades, Escolastica also took care of the children she and Pedro shared. Jacinto, their first child, was born in 1897. Pedro, Jacinto, and Escolastica were tirelessly to lay the foundation of what became an unlikely story of success in the community of Garona in Maunabo, Puerto Rico. As Pedro acquired more land and monetary success, he also began what Cesar, Pedro's son, described as skirt chasing. He continuously courted women of predominantly West African or indigenous Taino ancestry, impregnated them, and eventually fathered 50 children. With the wealth he acquired, he started to build multiple houses for these women and children. The women he favored the most were given their own homes. Others were forced to share, living with otras mujeres or other women and children that were not their own. This was at a time where Puerto Rico was economically vulnerable, changing from Spanish to American currency, and recently enduring the 1899 San Siracao hurricane. Many of the women turned to Pedro for economic stability for themselves and their children. Of course, not everybody was treated the same. The women he privileged the most was a woman named Maria Conchita Garcia. For her, Pedro built a house that became known in the community as La Casa Grande, the big house. It had 6 bedrooms, a grand dining room, and even a greenhouse. He named 2 of the boys he shared with Maria Conchita after himself and his father, Martin. Many of the children they shared also became the biggest beneficiaries in his legal will. This hierarchy within it reflects traditions from both West African and Taino cultural practice. Beginning hundreds of years ago, in West African societies, men with more wealth might take multiple wives and give one or two exclusive privileges that others did not enjoy. In indigenous Taino society, predating the 16th century, men of higher social standing also had multiple wives, and they all typically lived as an extended family that nurtured one another. The nature of humans in these arrangements, however, often resulted in favoritism from the man and thus jealousy from some women. Inevitably, this favoritism and jealousy created tensions amongst the many women in Cowden. Some women were unhappy with the polygynous arrangement and longed for monogamy. One woman met with the Santeria sorceress in an attempt to cast a spell to make herself Pedro's only lover. She was instructed to strip under the full moon and chant in tongues before Pedro's window. Seeing this unfold, Pedro yelled at the fully naked woman, in Spanish, of course. He said, "Mujer, are you crazy? Get your expletive in the expletive house." Her spell did not seem to work. Maybe she did not follow the instructions. Although humorous, this moment gives us a few understandings about the community. First, it shows the tensions that existed between women. Secondly, it reveals that some of the women were at odds with Pedro. Lastly, it shows us that there was a presence of Afro-Indigenous spiritual practices within the community, which had been passed down for generations. While there were those at odds within the community, women like Maria Conchita and Escolástica took steps to promote harmonious relations and well-being for the children as a collective. Maria Conchita helped guide other women. She served as a medic for the community, and she took care of children who were not her own. After giving birth to her first son with Pedro, Maria was blindsided by the birth of another boy the very next day. Epifanio Rodriguez was born to Pedro Rodriguez Torres and Eulogia Rodriguez on January 6, 1914. When Epifanio's mother fell ill, Pedro asked Maria Conchita to care for the child who would die without mercy. With little hesitation, Maria agreed, and Epifanio grew up closely to the rest of the children in La Casa Grande. When a friend once remarked to her, "Maria, I don't know how you can live with a man who is so womanizing that he brings you children from other women for you to take care of." Maria did not flinch. Calm and clear-headed, she replied, "I knew him like that, and there's no being on this earth that can change him. I adapt to the situation." Maria Conchita understood that she was entering an arrangement absent from monogamy. She was willing to navigate it in a way that would benefit herself and her children, those of hers by blood and those by circumstance. Maria thus became a central figure in sustaining peace within a family that stretched across households and lineages. It is unclear what happened to Eulogia, but she likely took solace in knowing that her son would be cared for. Escolástica, Pedro's first wife, also played a vital role within the community. Her intelligence was matched by quiet authority. Children clustered around her for lessons. Young mothers sought her advice, and she was entrusted with the care of their little ones when hardships struck. Even during a difficult period of separation from Pedro, Escolástica remained in Garona. She also came to accept the polygyny that Pedro engaged with, partially as a means of survival, and remained with him. She remembered her tireless days and her endless contributions to Garona. Escolástica and Pedro would have children together until the mid-1920s, such as Juana Rodriguez, who was born in 1924. Together with Maria and the other women, she helped fashion a self-sustaining world by helping with the crops, tending to livestock, and caring for the children. Some crops and livestock that were raised on the Rodriguez field were also used to feed the family. Many of the women and children in Garona were involved in the agricultural practices that contributed to both the business and their own self-sustenance. Pedro's land ownership culminated in 330 hectares, or roughly 330 acres, as stated in his testamento or legal will. This legal document also lists many of his children and the women with whom he was in relationships. At the time of his death in 1935, Pedro left behind $100,000 cash in a business lockbox for his family, worth about $2 million today. He left most of the land to the children he had with Escolastica and Maria Josita, likely as a symbol of affection and appreciation. One of Pedro's main stores was downsized and ran by his and Maria's daughter, Yamina Rodriguez, and her husband, Olviano Colon, for a few decades after his death. It still stands today, although it is closed for business. Most of the land the children inherited was eventually sold to investors throughout the 20th century. Nonetheless, Pedro more than fulfilled his self-promise to support himself, as he was able to support over 60 people and offer inheritances after his eternal rest began. Pedro Rodriguez Torres and Escolastica Patazi were my great-great-grandparents. Beyond a personal or ancestral interest, this story is a testament to the many aspects of early 20th century history of Puerto Rico that has been neglected. It speaks of Afro-Indigenous polygyny, the contributions of women, community, and rags to riches, quite literally. It speaks of a community whose practices echo African and Taino ancestral traditions. Its existence challenges the idea that Puerto Rican society is monolithic and solely revolves around Hispanic customs. This study is based upon legal documents, oral histories, and an 80-page memoir written by Cesar Rodriguez, Pedro's son. I learned about the story from my grandmother, Juana Suarez, who is Pedro's granddaughter. She connected me with the other grandchildren of Pedro, who provided me with memoir, legal documents, and other insights that were verified by archivists. The study involved hundreds of hours of research and is far from finished. Thank you for your time, and I would be glad to answer any questions during our Q&A.